Welcome to FRC Media News for Thursday, August 29th, 2019. I'm Keith Tebow. Tonight we continue our discussion with the three candidates running for mayor here in the city of Fall River. Tonight we talk about the expanded sale of marijuana within the city of Fall River. We also have an update on the city's Crest Brook water drainage project, our third in a series of reports on this project. And we also have a new way to bike around city parks. We'll have those in just a few moments, but first, let's check in with the news headlines of the week. We bring in Phil Devitt, the digital news editor at the Herald News. Phil, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Keith. Thank you. How are you?
Good, thanks. Let's get right to it. Let's start with the issue of marijuana here in the city of Fall River. We had talked about this before. The City Council a few weeks back issued an order which would limit the number of dispensaries here in the city of Fall River to 11. The mayor has signed 14 letters of non-opposition. This week, the mayor decided to veto that city council order. What does it mean for the process here in Fall River?
Yeah, so I mean, some might say they saw this coming, but certainly I think the city council was taken aback by this. A letter dated August 23rd. Mayor Jaisal Correa lays out a couple of reasons why he's vetoing the city council's cap on marijuana licenses in the city. The first issue he addresses is language in the ordinance, and I think you and I, Keith, have talked about this in previous episodes. You raised the question once, is it even legal? Does the city council have the legal authority to cap the number of recreational marijuana licenses? So that's what Correa is asking in this letter. He's taking issue with some of the language in this ordinance. But then he also points a finger at one city councilor in particular, Sean Kadim, with whom he has sparred very publicly in the past, the recent past. He notes that Sean Kadim is the town administrator in Seekonk, and says he should have recused himself from this vote or any marijuana-related vote, because that town recently approved 2 letters of non-opposition and host agreements for marijuana businesses itself. So now we have this veto in effect. Outspoken City Councilor Leo Pelletier telling the Herald News this week that the mayor is, quote, out of control, to use his words. He claims that the mayor doesn't care about the city. He's sort of being pointed and harsh there. Pelletier's point of view for a long time has been, look, there are going to be too many shops. We have to draw the line somewhere. Pelletier also told us that the council will have an opportunity to override this veto in its next meeting. So this is not done just yet, Keith.
So do you remember what the vote was from councilors when they approved this limitation? Because that will lead to potentially what could be an override.
Yeah, so the cap was at 11.
Right.
There had been various numbers floated, but 11 was what the council decided on. I don't have the exact the way this turned out in front of me, but I do know that it was a close vote. It was a close vote,
right?
And a couple of the vote was swayed. We learned, according to a couple of city councilors, by the mayor's most recent approvals, of course, of 2 marijuana facilities to be run by the brother of his girlfriend. That played a role in this decision to begin with.
So again, we'll see if the City Council takes it up at its next meeting, which will be in September. They'll be meeting again very, very soon. So we'll see if the Council votes to override it. And then, again, what does it really mean? Is there really any teeth behind this in terms of whether the City Council does have that jurisdiction? We'll follow up on that, I'm sure, very soon. Another story we want to follow up on this week is your reporting at the Herald, Phil, over the allegations of abuse by a police officer, Fall River police officer, which led to an indictment. And in the course of that, there was news that I believe we talked about last week, that 2 officers that testified against this other police officer who has been charged with assaulting witnesses or potential violators of the law. Defendants, that's the right word. That they, during their course of testimony, testified that, in fact, they had falsified reports. These officers were given immunity in that initial case. The DA's office had forwarded that to the city of Fall River and its police department. But one report that you had this week, Phil, talks about how those filing of potential false police reports could impact those defendants that were mentioned in those alleged falsified reports.
That's right, Keith. Yeah, we did some thinking about this, and look back to some stories that have made headlines in Massachusetts over the years. Obviously, this one is a bit different, but we lead with a recap of the Annie Dukin story, and if that name sounds familiar, it's because this is the woman who she was a crime lab technician, apparently falsified lab reports. And then a lot of criminal convictions and cases in Massachusetts had to be thrown out. So obviously this is a different situation here in Fall River, but we did want to check in with local law enforcement and legal experts in the area just to get a sense of what direction this might go. The Bristol County District Attorney's Office not commenting really on the matter at the moment. But we spoke with somebody at a Boston law firm, for example, a gentleman named Howard Friedman, who is an attorney. He's weighing in on this, saying, look, honesty is a requirement to be a police officer. If an officer files a false report, that's damaging not only to those officers but to the department as a whole, and does call into question, reports and cases that are pending in the system at the moment. Officer credibility being paramount. So we're not entirely sure what's going to happen just yet. The district attorney has an interest in whatever happens to these officers who filed false reports. Again, not commenting at the moment. But another perspective from a more local attorney in New Bedford, Donald Brisson, telling us that, he applauds Quinn's office, the DA's office, for, doing the right thing, which is, trying to get this information disclosed to the police department. Because, from their perspective, from the DA's perspective, it's important that the people at the top know that the people working for them are not necessarily, doing the right thing and being truthful. Yeah. And again, one more perspective, of course, from our own mayor here in the city. He says, we're looking into internal controls so that every officer will be held to a higher standard. And Correa says we're going to continue to monitor the situation here in the city.
Now, as we mentioned, the investigation into these two officers, they've been put sort of on desk duty as of right now. That is before the chief of police, Albert Dupere, and he mentioned that there'll be an internal investigation. Any update on that, and whether did the chief give any indication on when a resolution in terms of that internal investigation may come forth?
So the chief told us in our initial reporting that yes, these officers are on in-house duty. We believe that remains the case at the moment. He also indicated that an investigation would take place. It's our understanding that that might not necessarily happen until the department receives official documentation from the court. But we're definitely going to keep tabs on that, Keith.
In relation to this case, your paper, the Herald News, sort of making news of its own in the reporting of the story, this story in terms of the revealing of these two officers saying they falsified reports. It was part of information that the court says was impounded and should not have been available for public disclosure. However, your reporters, I believe it was Amanda Burke and Joe Good has also reported on this as well, actually found out this information through a public computer at the courthouse. And now I believe the courts are looking to potentially hold the paper in contempt for using information that is compounded. What can you tell us, as much as you can, about this?
Sure, yeah. So the defense attorney for Michael Pessoa who is facing the 15 counts of related to excessive force and abuse of authority while serving the Fall River Police Department, has requested a contempt hearing based on our reporting of a couple of weeks ago, in which we revealed that these two officers were granted immunity but also admitted to filing false reports. And just in court this week, we've also reported on this. We don't like to be in the news ourselves often, but in this case we were. The judge is now considering whether a hearing is necessary. Of course, attorneys for the Herald News owners, Gatehouse Media, are arguing that a hearing is not necessary because the means by which the newspaper obtained this information have already been disclosed, which would be the whole point of the hearing. We have disclosed that we obtained this information on a public computer in the normal course of our reporting at the Fall River Justice Center. So even though this information was impounded by the judge, the argument on the Herald News side is that it was publicly available, either through error or we don't know what.
Right.
But in other words, the burden is not necessarily on us here. The information was already publicly accessible. And of course, the newspaper maintains that this information is important and serves a great public interest. So we'll see what happens, and we want to be upfront with people about what course this takes as well. So we'll stay tuned.
All right, very good, Phil. All right, Phil, what's coming up over the next few days?
So I'm sure that we are all sick to death of the reminders to go outside and wear repellent and long sleeve shirts because of this increased mosquito activity and the heightened risk of triple E. But this, of course, as we've seen locally, can be a very serious condition, fatal even. Right. So we're checking in with local restaurants and local residents about, what are your plans for this weekend? It's Labor Day, and are you taking any extra precautions in light of this, potentially, serious condition? So we don't want to get people too down in the dumps, but remind them to be safe out there. And try to stay away from those mosquitoes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as we head through September, the days will be getting colder and mosquitoes won't be much of an issue any longer. All right, Phil, thank you for joining us. Have a great week.
Thank you, Keith. You too.
We'll have more FRC Media news after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Clinician Social Worker. Fall River Deaconess Home, located at 259 Prospect Street, is in need of a full-time clinician social worker to provide therapeutic services and counseling to youth and their families. Job number 125-18279. Associate Scientist Engineer. Celdex Therapeutics Incorporated, located at 151 Martine Street, is looking for a full-time Associate Scientist Engineer to develop and troubleshoot the purification process for the manufacturing facility. Job number 125-18460. Director of TRIO. Bristol Community College, located at 777 Ellsbury Street, is looking to hire a full-time Director of TRIO to develop the college's TRIO team that provides academic support, access to financial and transfer services, and community outreach to middle and high school students. Job number 125-19468. Family Service Association, located at 101 Rock Street, is looking to fulfill the following full and part-time positions. Intensive Care Coordinator, job number 125-20069. Assistant Group Leader, job number 125-20070. Fall River Public School Department, located at 417 Rock Street, is also looking to fill the following full and part-time positions for the upcoming fall school program. Instructional Support Liaison, job number 125-18382. Health and Physical Education Teacher, job number 125-18172. For more information on these or other positions, visit masshirejobquest.detma.org or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. We continue our look this week into the issues facing the three candidates running for mayor here in the city of Fall River in the September 17th preliminary election. Tonight, Mayor Jaziel Correa and challengers Paul Coogan and Erica Scott Pacheco give their thoughts on the extension of marijuana sales here in Fall River and the restrictions set by the City Council and vetoed by the mayor.
I don't know if there should be a limit. If the state decided that they wanted to do it by population or some formula, then that would be a good policy to implement. There is no policy on that right now. There is a policy like that for liquor sales, for example. However, if you think about it, there are actually over 100 places, locations in Fall River that you can buy tobacco products, cigarettes, over 100. And the council, without any data, without any information, without any knowledge, is saying that it should be a number, whatever number that is, 11 they say. That is not factual. There's no proof of that. And I, as the mayor, will not limit the city from achieving new revenue sources. So out of the 14 letters that have been written, not all of those will be physical dispensaries where you can walk in and buy marijuana products. Some of them are just grow facilities. Some are making oil for chocolates and infusion into food. So there's not all 14 are actual physical stores. Out of the ones that may become stores, you have to think, 3.5 years, 14 letters, but yet we still only have one that's open, right? It's causing traffic. They're making a ton of money. The city is getting a tremendous benefit. We're getting about $100,000 every month, which is $1.2 million a year, just from the city side, and then an additional 1.2 back from the state. So over $2 million just from one location. That's pretty significant. That's a lot of money that we can use to not increase taxes. So do I think the limit should be 14 or 10 or 2 or 3? No, I don't know the answer to what the limit is, because even the state doesn't know the answer to that question. So I think that'll all flush itself out, but I also am not in the business of stifling competition, because the more that there are, the more competitive the prices will be. The more people will come to get marijuana in Fall River.
Anybody that's driven up Canning Boulevard to the casino and seen the line out the one recreational marijuana facility we have now knows that there probably is a demand for others. That the city can sustain others. Can the city sustain 14? If Paul Coogan was the mayor, I think I would roll out 2 or 3 or 4 and see how it plays out. But I wouldn't go from 1 to 14. That's not practical. There would never have been that many letters given out. I think that if he had done this in a more piecemeal fashion, rolling it out, the south end, the north end, the center of the city, see how it plays out. See how it plays out. Just giving out letters, 14, I mean, where did that number come from? What study can he show that says the city can sustain 14 of these things? And again, we have plenty of package stores, bars, and everything, and I understand the rationale, but an ounce of pot up there is $480. I mean, if you look at the line, it looks like people going to a Nordstrom's, not going to the Grill 110 or the Republican Club. These are people, those people, the cost at that marijuana facility are extremely, extremely expensive. So we're looking for a different clientele, and can the city draw in enough to sustain 14 of them? Now, if we did 4 or 5 and they were all still going great guns and the money was rolling, let's go to 7. Let's go to 8. But it would be a plan, economic growth, not just here's 14, welcome to Fall River.
As mayor, I'll work with my partners in government, the city council, and the school committee, and that limit is set by the city council. That's just the way that the system is in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now, I think most of us saw that really embarrassing meeting last week where Jaziel Correa stormed down, interrupted the city council meeting. They had to pause the meeting, stopping the city council from doing the business of you, the people. And my understanding is that in that meeting, they set a limit of 11, and Jaziel Correa has issued 14 letters. Now, it is true that having a letter does not mean you automatically have a permit, but it is a really key piece of the puzzle. You have to have a letter before you can get a permit. And so As mayor, I will respect that limit set up by the city council because it's not my role to dictate. It's my role to work in concert and to have a positive working relationship. So I respect the institution of the city council, and you, the voters, put them in place to do your business. So you have elected them, they said that there's going to be a limit, and I would respect that as mayor.
We'll continue to hear from the candidates over the next few weeks leading up to the September 17th preliminary election. One other election-related note, next Thursday, 1 week from tonight on September 5th at 6 p.m., we'll be working with the Fall River Reporter to host a mayoral debate here in our studio featuring the three candidates. The event will be held in our studio here and will be closed to the public. You can watch that debate live on Channel 95 as well as on our Facebook page. Also, in relation to that, this program, normally at 6 p.m., next week will air 1/2 hour earlier at 5:30. The Crestbrook Water Drainage Project is coming to an end this fall, possibly as soon as early October. FRCMedia News explains how one section of the project that branches off Eastern Avenue affects water flow in the area.
So we're on the edge of Eastern Avenue right now, just north of David Street. This is what we call the Bush Pond Outlet. So behind us, over my right shoulder, is what was called Bush Pond or Hebert Pond. So Crestbrook came down from Oak Grove Cemetery, flowed into Bush Pond or Hebert Pond, and then continued out. So this swale here we had to open up. It was highly overgrown with vegetation and sedimentation, so we had to fully clean that out. There's a new head wall here for our 48-inch pipe that conveys the water out into Eastern Avenue, heads north onto Eastern Avenue up to the President Ave Rotary. We had major flooding at the bottom of Garden Street, Acacia Street, Burke Street. Those properties were highly impacted because the water had nowhere to go when it came down. Some pictures we were shown actually showed rivers going by the people's houses. So this project's going to greatly help those houses. It'll also help, like I said, the original flow of the Crestbrook, get that down to the interceptor drain so it can get to South Watuppa where it needs to go, so that it doesn't flood properties.
We'll have more FRCMedia News after this.
Thank you for considering a homeless pet today. I hope you enjoy what you're about to see, and as always, please feel free to contact the shelter before coming down to make sure that the pets you're viewing are still available for adoption. We can be reached at 508-677-9154.
Today on Hot Dogs and Cool Cats, we have Blaine, who is a very sweet boy, plays well with others. He enjoys playing with cats and other dogs. He gets along well with children. He did suffer a foot injury before coming into the shelter, and that healed up on its own, so he has a little lump on his front right paw. But it doesn't faze him at all. Still very playful, and he loves to cuddle with you on the couch or in bed. And he loves to play with tennis balls and tug toys, and he's a very happy-go-lucky little guy. If you want to come down and meet Blaine, you can come down to Forever Paws Animal Shelter. We're located on 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts, and I'm sure he'll be very excited to meet you.
Today we have Ellie. She is about 3 years old. She is a pit mix. She does get along with other dogs. She was recently spayed. For children, she'd probably do better with older children. She is very sweet, but she is pretty active. She does enjoy her walks. She is active, but she also is a little cuddle bug as well. She does like to play in the kiddie pools. She does love to run. She's a good runner. So if you want to come down and meet Ellie at Forever Paws Animal Shelter, we're located on 300 Linwood Street, Fall River, Massachusetts.
Finally this week, the Fall River Public Library has launched a new program whereby city residents can borrow a bike. Here's more.
Well, we have 3 bikes that were donated to us, and what it is for Fall River residents that have a library card, you have to be 18 years old. So we do offer the helmets. It's up to the adult, because if you're 18 or older, you're not required to wear one, but we do provide them. And we also have a waiver form that has to be filled out to release the city from any liability on that. We also have the locks for the bikes, and you can borrow them for 1 week at a time. And all you need is your library card, and it's free. We're very close to the bike path, so we thought it was a wonderful tie-in with the city's new bike path to be able to walk out up with a bicycle and ride it down to the path, go down to the Heritage Park, or wherever you wanted to ride it.
Now, are these available all year round?
No, we're only going to do it seasonal. We're going to probably end the end of October. It'll be from May to October will be when they're available.
So it's promoting healthy living too.
Absolutely. I mean, you can check out some nice cookbooks on eating healthy, and cycling can tie in with all of that.
That's it for this edition of FRC Media News. Again, one program reminder, next week this program will air 1/2 hour earlier at 5:30, leading up to the 6 p.m. mayoral debate, co-sponsored by FRC Media and the Fall River Reporter. Otherwise, you can watch FRC Media News on Thursdays and Fridays, normally at 6 o'clock, and you can check out our news online at frcmedianews.org. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great week, a great long Labor Day weekend. We'll see you next week.
Oh, no high-fiving. Woo, man!